Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Demi, welcome back to Good Morning Hospitality for a live sneak peek that we normally don't do, but unfortunately, due to horrible internet issues on Monday, we didn't really get to give you the spotlight that you and AirDNA and all the announcements that you guys had deserved. So I'm glad that you took the time today to sit down with me and kind of cover everything that we're supposed to cover on Monday. But outside of that, how are you doing today? It's good to see you again.
I am doing so well. Thanks for having me back. And I apologize about my Wi-Fi. It looks like it's working today, so fingers crossed it stays that way.
Yeah, three out of the 5 of us on the call had Wi-Fi issues, so that was a little chaotic, unlike the normal weekly show. I would love to know, and just for all of our listeners, Demi joined at the last, tail end of this week's episode where we kind of covered a lot about the Expedia and Hopper debate and drama, but you guys got to announce a really exciting announcement around acquisition, which again, I think we've seen slow down in our industry a little bit during this year, but it's always great to see that AirDNA is being active in the acquisition space. So tell us about this new part of the team, part of the company, and who you guys acquired and what you guys are looking forward to with them joining you.
Absolutely. So we acquired a company called Arrivalist, and they are the leading provider of location intelligence for the travel industry. And we're super excited about this acquisition for a number of reasons. The first one being it's a really great team. I think it's always great to bring more phenomenal people onto the team. And in particular, I would say their team has very complementary skills to what we do very well at AirDNA. So they are a data business. We're a data business at our core. So the data engineers, data scientists, everyone on Jamie Lane's analytics and economics team is also thrilled to have more like-minded peers to talk to. Nobody invite them to any dinner parties because I'm sure they could talk data literally the entire time. But that's been fantastic, just bringing the two teams together and bringing the cultures together. And then I think it's just a natural fit for a number of different reasons. Arrivalist was the pioneer in their industry, as was AirDNA. So Arrivalist was really the first to be using location data for travel. And AirDNA, of course, was the first to at scale collect short-term rental data, which is a nice kind of natural fit and speaks to a culture of innovation, being the first to do something really pushing the frontier on both of those sides. And then we serve a shared customer today. AirDNA has a very large business with destination marketing organizations. That is a customer that Arrivalist serves phenomenally well. And so being able to bring our solutions together to then be able to provide a more streamlined experience for those customers is something that we're very excited to be able to do. And then the last thing I'll say is just, I think one of the things I get excited about is there's kind of the very natural stuff to do in the short term related to what we can offer destinations, because that's a customer we both know very well and have great solutions for. But when you think about the broader suite of products that AirDNA offers, being able to bring the kind of insights that Arrivalist has into those products, I think is really pushing the envelope. It's not something that anybody in this part of the industry is able to do. And that's being able to answer questions for people like, where are your guests coming from? When they're in a destination, what do they actually do? If they're looking for a place to stay outside of this national park, how far do they actually look for a place to stay if they're planning on doing this, that, and the other? So we just really want to be kind of pushing things forward and doing things that are new to provide people better information to drive their decisions.
Yeah, I love that. And I have a bunch more questions for you around that, but I'm kind of curious just to set a tone maybe for our listeners. When did you come in to AirDNA as the CEO? Because I know you moved up from COO level, but when was the official transition for you? Because this is exciting. I believe this is what your guys' acquisition, you at the helm?
Yes, first acquisition for AirDNA and definitely first one with me at the helm. But I joined AirDNA with the acquisition by Alpine Investors. So I joined in February of 2022, and then I was promoted to the CEO role in September or October of last year. I guess it was such a big and stressful transition that I don't even remember when it was anymore.
I can only imagine. It feels like this last 2 years or maybe 3 years is just kind of feels like 6 months or less. So I totally get that. I can only imagine what you went through in that transition. But it's
Yeah.
very exciting, to have you, 1, accomplish your first acquisition as CEO, but to hear you talk about the team, and I'm sure there's probably a couple of you on the AirDNA team that maybe feel out of place being surrounded by all these data nerds and geeks that just love to dive into the numbers. I know I would feel out of place. But, when it comes to acquisition and as a CEO, what made Arrivalist so attractive for you guys outside of the shared customer base that you have within the destination kind of DMO market?
It was really around the data and the types of insights that we think we can bring to our customers from having access to this type of data and having this type of data digestible in a way that is unique and customized for folks in this industry. So I get really excited about just making it easier for our DMO customers to get all of the information that they need in one place, make it easy and kind of do that work for them because everyone at this point is talking about using data to make decisions. And yet, not everybody has a team of data scientists and data engineers and is able to crunch the numbers themselves. So, what we hear from a lot of our customers is tell me the takeaway. I don't want to have to go hire a data scientist. I don't want the data via API necessarily. There are
Yeah,
customers who can do that, but there are plenty who don't want to and who would not want to be seated at that end of the dinner party table. I guess we could say it that way.
totally agree. And I can imagine from the short-term rental segment or side of the whole pie, the DMO portion is probably really attractive because a lot of short-term rental operators don't get included as part of the lodging option for tourism or events or conferences or other things. A lot of the hotel market is really where they're kind of advertising. So to be included now as a true segment of lodging and part of the destination marketing, could be really, really beneficial for our segment of hospitality and travel. Do you guys agree that's kind of a big shift for what you're gonna be doing with Arrivalist and moving into that more general segment?
Absolutely, 100%. And it's interesting talking to the Arrivalist team, many of whom have decades of experience in the DMO space, talking to them about what the industry has looked like in its evolution, where 10 years ago, DMOs were talking about hotel data and needing insight into what was happening in hotels. And that makes perfect sense. Their tax revenue was coming from hotels, and short term rentals were not a contributor to what they needed in order to operate. And that has dramatically changed, so much so that in some destinations that are big STR markets, the majority might actually be coming from short term rentals and consumer preferences have changed. So customers might prefer to stay in a short term rental. And I think any DMOs that are not tracking the short term rental market are missing out on a big piece of the pie and don't have that full visibility of what's happening in their destination. And that's another kind of component of the acquisition of Arrivalist. We were actually already working with Arrivalist as partners, and we were providing data for their lodging product, which gives the insight into the overnight economy in a destination, which encompasses hotels, short term rentals, and people who are staying with friends and family. So you can imagine at the time of year that everyone's going home for the holidays, a lot of people stay with friends and family. If you're trying to understand movement and travel and what's happening with tourism during those times, and all you're looking at is hotel, you just don't have the full picture.
Yeah, no, you guys really are bringing it full circle with the data and more than just short-term rental or just hotels. I love that. And I've never heard the phrase that you just said, but overnight economy. That's a new one for me that I'm definitely keeping for for my back pocket. I was going to ask you though, into you kind of mentioned a little bit of this already, but in the sense of the STR side, how are you going to now integrate this arrivalist data, this arrivalist product and service to the short-term rental operator, whether they're starting their business and trying to scale, or they're already at scale within like that enterprise property management company that you can probably imagine with the amount of customers that you guys have. I would love to know now, what do you think they're gonna be able to see within this AirDNA world with this arrivalist data?
Yeah. So to manage expectations, it's going to take a minute to accomplish the dream. And the short to medium term priority is really how do we create a streamlined product experience and a streamlined customer success and service experience for destination marketing organizations as the kind of most clear place to be able to provide those things. And then after that, we'll really start exploring places where we can start bringing the arrivalist data into our Market Minder tool. What exactly that will look like remains to be worked out, and I'll get murdered if I give too many details about what I would get excited about, without running them by our chief product officer, who's wonderful and kind of excited and thinking about these things. But kind of high level, the things that I think would be very interesting and exciting are things like your listing is in this particular market, or you're looking at this particular market. What should you know about why people come to that market and what they actually do in that market? Because that can influence how much you think you can earn. If you're closer or further away from those key activities that people are doing, maybe you can charge more and get a premium. And what do you actually put in your listing? What are you surfacing as the reason that somebody should stay at your property? If you know what the top activities are for people to do, maybe you would kind of put those further front and center. So that's one clear area that I get really excited. And then there's things around better, more intelligent pricing because we know how many people are going to the Taylor Swift concert and can factor that in. So there's just a whole suite of things that are just mind blowing. And all of our mathematicians can probably have a field day figuring out what they can influence and what they can't.
I would love to have them on the podcast, but I'm sure I would look like a bad podcast host that would be like, "I have no idea what they're showing me right now." I'm just like, nod and wave, nod and wave.
Yeah,
But
why don't they
that
ask each other questions?
there we go. I'll just record it and just be happy to watch and observe. That's really cool. I love the vision. I know you can't go into the weeds and the details of product and kind of the directions you guys would love to take it, but I think this is something I'm surprised we haven't seen happen sooner within the industry. I think, we have been so focused on short-term rental, short-term rental, short-term rental, forgetting that sometimes we're part of a bigger pie or a bigger industry than a lot of us would think. I know it's hospitality, but DMOs and understanding foot traffic better, and I'm a user of AirDNA, so, like, the Market Minder, feature and tool, like, yes, I know what markets are great based off of revenue and kind of the data you guys have pulled, but, being able to understand my guests better, I think as an operator is gonna be super crucial for the industry in general, just because I think a lot of us can have that lack of connectivity with the guest when it comes to personalization on the experience and kind of understanding the reasons and the making behind the scenes of why they're even choosing to stay at our home or our property. So this is really exciting. My next question for you is not a really serious question, so I understand, but when are you guys going to be able to predict the future?
You don't think we can already predict the future? That's something
Oh,
that he has in his spreadsheets. Maybe he's just not sharing it yet.
it's another piece of data he's hiding from us on the show. I know it. I know it. He's marking it
That
down.
man has so many forecasts that he's working through. Some of them maybe are in his head, but yeah, he's got some stuff on paper that he's very excited about. So I'm sure he'll be talking more and more about those.
Good. Next time he's on the podcast, we'll get our crystal ball out and make him show us what's next in the future landscape of everything. Forecasts are
Lo-
great, but I wanted to call out
mm,
specifics.
Like strategic shifts and all of that. Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. It
Those are
could be a
for our
new
board.
focus. Yeah, your board meetings. Yes, that'd be great. And speaking of the board, actually, I would love to kind of maybe even just kind of for our listeners, again, more context could probably be better. Alpine Investors is what acquired AirDNA. And I also saw within the press release, which for all of our listeners too, we will be linking in the show notes. So if you already haven't looked in the show notes, go do that now so you can get more detail that's probably a lot more accurate than me asking Demi questions on some stuff maybe I'm not most familiar with. But I would love to know with is it Predictus? Which is what the okay, the parent company that you guys are now part of, right? Can you guys maybe yeah, share some context on what Predictus is and how it connects with Alpine and what you guys are doing now?
Yes, absolutely. So Alpine is the broader private equity firm that made the acquisition of AirDNA. And then Predictus is basically a home for data businesses that sits within the Alpine ecosystem. So Alpine has a long history of having kind of specialized entities like Alpine Software Group under the overarching Alpine umbrella. And they developed a really phenomenal expertise and operational support for vertical SaaS businesses over the last 10 years. And Alpine has their annual kind of sessions where they think about what's next and kind of what's the future area of innovation. And the story, as I have heard it, so you'll have to check with them if you want more detail. But my understanding is they kind of got together and said, what can we do next that would kind of be similar to the model of Alpine Software Group? And they had had some success in looking at a number of data businesses coming through the pipeline. And I think the timing was such that AirDNA was kind of in the pipeline at that time. So Alpine actually made the AirDNA acquisition and at the same time was creating this predictive strategy and really codifying it. So it's been a really exciting time to be a part of the Alpine ecosystem, a part of Predictus, because we've kind of been able to collaborate and be along for the ride as they're developing the thesis around data businesses and all of that.
Super exciting. I love that. That makes a lot more sense, and I was looking through all this stuff, and I was like, "Oh, I need to ask some questions around this." Probably, maybe not the
Yeah.
best questions to ask on a live interview, but at the end of the day, we can always, talk about it more. Um, I would love to know, just on another note for your experience, going from the COO role to now CEO, how has that transition been for you? I know you kinda mentioned it's been like a blur when you made that transition back in October, but I would love to know just from your point of view, what was that kind of, transition like for you, and how has that really shifted your leadership style and the way you kind of decide to look at a company?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because the business has also changed so much as things have changed for me as well. We're just in such a period of growth and change and professionalizing various functions and hiring. So it's hard to disaggregate what's me and my transition and role and what is kind of just being along for this stage of the ride at AirDNA.
Yeah.
But I would say a couple of the things that jump out are one, Scott and well, I'll speak for myself. I had a phenomenal experience working with Scott as his COO. And I really felt like that was an opportunity for me to learn the business and learn the industry because this is a new industry for me. And really just being under Scott's wing and having him teach me the ropes around AirDNA as a business, the who's who in the industry, the what's what, I guess, as well, was super, super helpful. And then it's been really exciting being in the leadership role and making that transition where I am so grateful I had the time to kind of get up to speed and figure out, at least to some extent, what is the lay of the land and how does this industry work, and to learn AirDNA and get to know the team as well. And it was a team of people, a lot of whom had been working together for many years. So it's been both exciting and at times difficult as all transitions are. But all in all, super fun. And it's great to be a part of a business that's growing the way that we're growing. Working with Alpine has been awesome. They're incredibly supportive and obviously super smart. So having them in our corner is awesome.
I love it. I love it. Well, this is super great to sit down with you and uncover all the questions or maybe even some topics that we didn't get to fully on Monday. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do a revisit with us a few days later. And this is just awesome to hear. And I look forward to meeting you in person here shortly. I know it's been a long time in the making. So just excited for the path that you guys are on at AirDNA.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me back. This was so nice. And I appreciate the opportunity for a redo with better Wi Fi.
Of course, of course. For all of our Good Morning Hospitality listeners, make sure you grab the press release in the show notes. Make sure you check out everything we covered from Arrivalist to AirDNA. And of course, we still have our active link with AirDNA. So if you don't use their data, go on it now and you'll get 20% off with Good Morning Hospitality. And we'll see you guys all again next.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.